right. Hey, hello, everyone. Welcome to our 35th live kitchen table conversation. Very, very glad to be back with all of you. My name is Sean Hayes. My pronouns are he, him, and his. And we are ready. After being off 2 weeks ago, we had to, postpone our talk that we were looking forward to with author, activist, speaker Chris Stark. That has been rescheduled. More details to come. But before we really jump into the conversation, I want to let my friends here introduce themselves and then we can get going.
Hello, everyone. My name is Felix Martinez. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I work for Esperanza United. Super happy and excited to be here. Happy New Year to all of you.
And hello, everybody. My name is Ed Heisler. I use he and him pronouns. I'm here in Duluth, Minnesota, and I am very happy because it stopped being so cold that when you walk outside, your skin feels like it's going to freeze immediately. So, like, it's bright and sunny and kind of warm today, and that's very nice. And it is good to be inside with the two of you today too.
Yeah, definitely enjoying the sunshine. Is it sunny where you are, Felix?
Yes, it is. I totally feel what you're saying. The last couple of days, and it's been 20 below, 12 below. Now I think we're like 26. So we're getting a heat wave in Minnesota. So super excited and happy.
Wahoo!
Look at us go. Yeah. Break out the flip-flops. No, not yet. But yeah, definitely grateful to see the sun. I know for myself, I was sick a lot of last week with like a stomach bug. And so I'm finally actually feeling better. And yeah, just really glad to be back with both of you here and thinking about our friends who weren't able to be here today, Pang and Serrano and Roderick, wherever you're at in meetings or traveling or whatever, we are sending you all of our love and look forward to being with you again soon. Oh, I want to do a heart too. Darn it, I'm too slow. Oh, there we go. Okay. Anywho, all right. So today's conversation, we were sort of just talking before coming live on here, and sort of just catching up, because we hadn't been together. We missed our last conversation. So I know Felix and I were like, it's been like a month since we've talked, and and now we are solidly into 2022 here, with the month of January almost wrapping up here. And so something that we've been thinking about and talking about is, how is this new year starting off for you, and what are some of your intentions as we're coming into February is coming soon. But yeah, just kind of thinking about what are your hopes and dreams, and aspirations for this coming year.
Hello, everyone. For me, at least, I can share that we started the year with COVID in the house. So obviously it wasn't really a good start. But thanks to the love of the family and support, we went through it, and now we're with that. So it was tough. It was tough because I don't feel I really have the vacation that I needed. But trying to stay positive, trying to start this new year with in a better way than the past ones. Uh, Trying to take better care of myself. Things that I'm looking forward is to take better care of myself too, and my loved ones. Before we went live, I was just sharing to Sean that sometimes when just long busy days that I'm from one call to another, the first thing that I have in my mind is, once I'm done with this, I'm disconnecting from everyone. I'm disconnecting from my spouses, my kids. I'm not talking to anyone. I just want to be in my space, and then realizing, you know what, this is really not healthy. Maybe the people around me, they need me also. They need someone to talk to, just because they maybe had a really tough day, and we forget about those type of things. So I want to start this year with doing that. Be more aware of the people around me. Also taking care of myself, and also putting my phone away. Something that I also share with Sean. I always have my phone with me. And the first thing that I do when I sit in a place, I grab my phone and put it on the table and realizing how honest is that. Even in the morning, not saying before I say good morning to my spouse, just grabbing my phone and start connecting. So there's so many things that I'm looking in this new year to hopefully change and getting more on healthy habits. But it's going to be challenging, but at the same time, I can see how positive can be, not just for me, but the people around me. But working more with community, I think this is going to be the community year. I think we're all going through a lot of stress with COVID and in our circles, but I think there's a lot of tools, there's a lot of positive things that we can do and we can support ourselves. So I want to start with the right food and be positive and be happy. I know we're going through hard times, but with our positive mind, I think we can do a lot of positive things.
Thanks, Felix. And it is so good to know that you and the whole family are doing okay after COVID. I know, as far as I know, I did not have it myself, but it's been one of those starts to the year where it's just like every week you find out about a new wave of people around us that are going through it and with different, very different experiences, and that obviously takes a toll on us all. And it's a tough reality, but there's also the part where there's so much to learn about how, like, COVID doesn't seem to give any choice but to rest and nourish yourself and figure out how to rebuild energy, and for community, having to think in unique and creative ways about how to be supportive of one another. And so hopefully that's one silver lining of this whole thing, is the opportunity to learn to be better to ourselves and others in relationship to this thing. So that's been weighing heavily on me too. Is it's just worry about people and the way that we have to navigate the world, especially when there's particularly a spike in COVID. But otherwise, the year has been starting out really good for me. In addition to all the COVID stuff, it's also been this really fast-paced energy, lots to get done, feels like lots of stuff is changing, lots of stuff is new, and that's been pretty exciting. I'm really hoping that let's see. So when I think about the year ahead, one of the things that I'm hoping for is I notice that even when really, really good things are happening, and you described it, Felix, it's like, you go from one meeting to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. Then you respond to your emails and you eat food. Then you have to finish some work, and before you know it, it's like bedtime. When it's like that, sometimes it can be really, really good and fun because it's all good stuff, all stuff that I enjoy doing. But and sometimes it's not stuff I enjoy doing, and that's less fun. But in either case, this year one of my intentions is to really find a way to create the space, the 20-minute chunks of time, whether it's on a drive or on a walk or a little bit earlier that I get up in the morning and have a cup of tea, to just spend some time just settling into myself a little bit, and make sure that I keep that as a practice throughout the year, especially since it's looking like it's going to be a busy one, because I've noticed that it's not that I'm completely disconnected or numb, but it's that I'm moving fast enough that I don't think that I'm completely able to be with everything that's happening around me as much as I would like. And there are everything from the sicknesses to the ways that our lives around us, the prices of groceries, the changes in the ways that we do our job, the ways that the government is struggling, all sorts of things like that, and then people's suffering as a result of that. Like, there's a need. I need to actually take some time to really feel sad about that, to grieve some of those things, and to allow the warmth, the move from -30 to or from negative 30 to 20 degrees in the light and the things that are beautiful in as well. I hope that for this year um, I can keep myself connected to both the sorrow of things that are painful and to the beauty and the goodness and the joy and the possibility that exists in it all too. And I know that there's about a minimum of 20 minutes that's required to do that. I hope it's a lot more, but but I'm gonna start there. I'm gonna start with the idea that that 20 minutes, and hopefully doing that in community with others in a growing community of people who are able to be with the conditions and the realities that we're in, so we can learn to do better and be better together during these times.
Yeah, thanks, Ed and Felix. I can definitely relate to a lot of what you're sharing. Um, yeah, for me, it's like, gosh, this first month has just like flown by. Like, I don't know where January went, and I feel like I was sick for half of it, which I know I wasn't actually, but and we're lucky that, you know, we had negative COVID tests as well, and so that, you know, the lesson I'm sort of getting right away is that yes, it's busy and there's a lot to do, and there is a lot of time that I can be resting, and I can be saying no to things, and I can be being more intentional with my time. And that has sort of always been something that I've struggled with. You know, I remember when we found out that Amy was pregnant and we were going to have a kid, and it was like, oh, I got to like cut things in half, all the things that I was doing and going to and being in community. And so I feel like since the birth of our child, that has sort of been an ongoing lesson of like, slow down. You know, friends and mentors and people around me, you know, kind of constantly reminding me like, it isn't going to happen today. We're not going to, you know, prevent violence, you know, do all of these massive things and goals and hopes that we have to create and to build safe communities. It's not going to happen today or tomorrow. You know, it's like this learning how to sustain my energy, and also learning about that balance. You know, I think Felix, you mentioned it too, where it's like, you know, how much of my time and energy and thoughts and feelings are, you know, towards the work that I do or the things within community that I'm a part of, and how much of that is then given to my family here, who I'm with all the time. And so that has been a big lesson, I think, you know, thinking of the coming year. I always sort of love thinking about how I'm going to be growing, because I am very clear on, you know, the fact that I have many areas of my life where I'm like, ooh, I don't like that about myself, or I don't like that habit. But this year, it really does feel like rest is a big one, and like taking care of myself in order to then take care of my people and the people around me. And that's a really hard lesson that I'm learning, to slow down, to breathe, to take, you know, like you're saying, Ed, I know I was on a call recently and they suggested, you know, after every hour, you know, or meeting that you have, take 15 minutes if you can do that, just to, you know, take care of yourself, whether that's drinking a cup of water, which I'm drinking water because the stomach bug made everything taste horrible. And you know, so just, yeah, trying to look at resting and making sure I'm taking care of myself, and really in all areas of my life, you know, thinking about like emotional, mental, physical, as well as spiritual. That's another sort of big thing that I personally am sort of working on this year and have a goal around, is connecting deeper to that sort of spiritual part of myself that I think I've been disconnected from for a long time. So thinking about wellness, thinking about how I take care of myself, and, you know, not leaving out these big parts of me that need some work and that need some love and some light in there.
I,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Sorry, I apologize. Go ahead. You start.
I was just gonna say, I mean, I listened to all three of us in our own ways. Um, we're wishing. I hear ways that we're hoping to to nourish and be good and kind to ourselves, and be with our families and our chosen families, and in ways that are good and nourishing to everyone. And I guess that's part, like, when I think about uh, my dreams for this year. I really hope. I know that it's been a rough couple of years. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's been rough for a while, uh, and I hope that regardless of what happens with the specific things that we're all facing, from pandemic to political stuff to violence, um, that this is a year when together, like if the three of us show up, and we didn't actually plan to talk about this kind of thing, like about creating the space and the time to nourish ourselves and be like, if that's something that is occurring to a lot of people all at once, I'm hopeful that this might be a year where we are able to feel um, reconnect or strengthen the connection to ourselves and the places that we live and the people that we care about, and that in the end, regardless of what happens with the variety of things that are happening around us, that our ability to, like, the weave or the weave of the fabric that connects us will be stronger after this year, I hope. And I know it might sound bonkers, because to some degree it always feels like things are pulling further apart and getting more polarized and such. But I don't know, when I hear the types of things that individuals are talking about, a lot of times it feels like everybody's like, a lot of people are really longing for um, for ways to figure out how to settle and how to be in relationship and in community and in the places that we're all in better and better ways. That would be a beautiful year if we could do that.
Yes, and I also realize that this is something that doesn't need to be done alone. I think having circles like this, it helps a lot sometimes, especially when we talk about topics about masculinity and patriarchy. To have with with other folks, but also with your loved ones. I mean, I think that's something very important when we having a partner, is to have that trust that you could tell that person everything you're going through. And sometimes there's stuff that we always keep because they're very personal, and especially for men. Of course, I don't like to cry. I don't like to cry in front of other people. That's something that scares me a lot. And sometimes when you cry and you release all that pain, or what you're going through, minutes later you feel like, well, I feel much better, after I cry to get all that stuff out of the system. And it's like, something that every individual need to go through, just something to get rid of that, and don't hold that negative negative thoughts or what you're going through that affect us so much, and sometimes hold us of making decisions because we're scared about, what if I fail? What if, it doesn't happen like I had it in my mind? All those things sometimes hold us and don't get the best of us, just because of that, because we're scared of failing. And life is we only have one. It's funny because I was just talking to my mom yesterday for the phone, and I was just joking. My daughter was, with me. We're having a conversation that I'm talking to my mom. It's like, you know what? I'm 45 years old. Most of people live till they're 80. If they're lucky, 85. So like, I'm in the middle of my path. And when I have started having that thought, I was like, oh my God, I'm old. They're thinking, wow. When I was in the 20s, I remember thinking of my parents being in the 40s, like they're old, they don't know what's going on. And me seeing myself right now at this point, it's like, oh my God, I need to enjoy. I need to start, stop worrying about certain things and focusing in my now. What I need to do to, if I leave tomorrow, I could say, you know what, I have I have the best of that I could, of my life. Try to don't, have enemies, just to try to be positive and support, my circles and my people around me. But yeah, life can go out in a minute, you know. So be grateful to be alive, be grateful to be healthy, and taking care of ourselves is a good start. You know, the better that you are, the better you're gonna be with the people around you. So, like I said before in the beginning, doesn't need to be alone. Have meaningful conversations with your loved ones, with your friends. We're here too. You guys can reach out us, you know, also through Facebook. You can ask us questions. Let's utilize this space for that, you know, just to a safe space, a space that you're not gonna be judged, a space that, you know, that you feel like yourself. So I think that's very important.
We keep doing that. There's so much to say to this, I think. But yeah, Felix, I think that what came through for me on what you just shared there is that like not having to do it alone part and how deeply ingrained that is a habit in me. Um, like I'm gonna do all of this on my own. I'm gonna just like, pick up all of these burdens, these projects, this work I'm doing, and I'm just gonna like trudge through this, path that's like dotted with COVID and this tragedy and this thing and this political thing. And my wife and I were just having a conversation yesterday about asking for help. Um, and how I just like I don't know why that is so hard for me to say to Amy, to this person that I have chosen to spend my life with, who knows me better than anyone else, to say, I need your help. I actually don't feel up to doing bedtime tonight. Can you help? Can you do this? It's like all of these, well, I should be able to do it. I should, be able to help my family out in this way. I should be able to, pitch in more so Amy gets more breaks. And, all of these shoulds is something that we were talking about. And so it's like this practice, right? It's like, I'm not going to be good at asking for help, like, because I want to be. Like, I wish it was that easy. But I'm not sure what that is. And I think with so many men and masculine people, it's like that vulnerability, that, to me, what feels like weakness, like, yeah, I don't feel good. I feel weak. I feel like I'm going to let Amy down. Um, and yet in these last couple days, she was sick as well. Like we were roughing it for a couple days, and it really was um, important conversations that we were having through that, where it's like, why aren't we asking for help, like between each other, right? Like as partners. And then why is it also so hard for us to like reach out and be like, hey, Ed, or hey, Felix, hey, Sarah, hey, people that we love and care about and are in our lives. We are struggling. We don't know what we need, but we need help. I think that's part of it too, is like not knowing what actually people can do to help, especially when we're so disconnected and isolated. And I know when we were sick, it was like, oh, we really wanted like my parents or someone to come and take Eleanor, because she was fine. She was super healthy, and we were just like what felt like dying. But, of course, we know it's not that. But yeah, it's like people are worried about, coming into contact with us then because we're sick and they don't want to get sick. And so, like, what does reaching out look like when folks are continuing to, isolate, and social distance and all of those things? So yeah, yikes. Oh, asking for help is so hard.
Yeah, that can be hard, and it is. It does take a practice, doesn't it? Like it's not like a perfect thing either, because sometimes we're not at our best and we're avoiding things uh, that would be good for us to do, and other times we really need help. I mean, I'm constantly sort of figuring the balance between the two, but the practice of asking for help and trusting people and um, being able to acknowledge, our mistakes and the ways that doesn't happen perfectly is it's just a big part of the flow of our relationships. And I was thinking, as you were both talking, Felix, when you were talking about like the emotions and the crying and things like that, that um, for me this year, another thing has been really thinking and feeling more and more and more what my connection to places are, um, and not just one place. So like the places that I would call home, I would think about. So um, you know, here in Duluth, in my hometown, Ashland, Toronto is a place I consider home. There's a few places that I consider home, but like really noticing that over the course of this pandemic, I went from being a person who would be on an airplane 2 or 3 or 4 times a month to a person who was at home all the time. And the opportunity to notice the things that were around me in different ways. But now this year, actually feeling the place, like, you know, the ground beneath my feet, uh, the trees that are outside, the animals that rotate in and out on a daily basis, all that kind of stuff. But one thing that has just been so important to me is Lake Superior, because, you know, for those of, we're in Duluth and you live on a hill and you're not far from seeing Lake Superior. And it's like, you know, when I pay attention to that thing, to the lake and to the water, it like, it also is a part of not having to do things alone, because it teaches a bunch of lessons, and it's something that has its own living, working cycles as well. And I was thinking about emotions and how, like, I've been watching the lake when it's super cold, like, you know, the mist just comes up off of it and it forms into these clouds, and the clouds literally get heavy, and then it snows or it rains if it would ever get warm enough for that to happen here. Um, uh, and like that's kind of the way that we are, right? We try not to be that way, but we try to be able to hold everything. But if you pay attention to the lake and watch the way that it operates, like things get hot or warm, or the difference in conditions between the lake and the air like moves in such a way that it collects enough of that water, enough of that energy up in the air, and then it has to release, you know. And like that's like a that's a lesson that I live alone, and that's a lesson that the lake is teaching me. And I've been crying a whole lot more, as of over the past year or so, um, certainly out of necessity, with some of the things that have been going on. And I even think about the in relation to the asking for help stuff. Like a lake doesn't do what a lake does on its own either. It needs ground and, like, you know, a big place to be held. It literally has like balances, like its pH balance, and the there's a whole ton of things that create an ecosystem, like a healthy ecosystem for a lake to function. And there are all sorts of beings within that lake that, you know, focus in and help put the balance into place. And when things get out of balance, like the lake might not actually have language, in English language, that says, hey, I need help, but it's communicating in some way, shape, or form. Like there's not a balance here, and things kick into place. And I just think that those sorts of things, it doesn't make me perfect at practicing them. It's not the whole of the solution, but uh, what it means if we can start to see ourselves just as another part of like a really big ecosystem of things. And that, yeah, we get out of balance, and it's natural for us to actually seek to be back in balance, to ask for help when things are out of alignment. And that doesn't mean that it's always easy to figure out, or there isn't hurt feelings or stuff like that happens, but it does mean that we're on the right track to be, seeing this, rather than the traditional masculinity stuff about like hold it all and be it all, to like recognize that even when it comes to the largest freshwater lake in the world, it's not like that. You know, we naturally have to, um, have to rely on others and be with others to be, to be balanced and whole. So.
Yeah, what's home? What's home was something that, especially when we're thinking in, in a safe space, when you're thinking what's home to you, that's something that it helped me find that space. And for me, it was my story being a little bit harder just because I'm from Puerto Rico. From Puerto Rico, I moved to Dominican Republic here. So when you're thinking home, it's a lot of things that I love from all those three places: Puerto Rico, Minnesota, and the Dominican Republic. So, but at the same time, also make me really hard to define what's home just because I was moving and I tried to bring all those positive things from all those three places with me. And for me, home is whatever my family is. When I say my family is where my spouse is, my kids are, and my parents are in Puerto Rico, so they're far away. But every time I go to Puerto Rico, I feel like I'm at home. My sister live in Arizona, having my sisters close to me when I go there on vacation. I feel Arizona is home just because I'm close to those people that I trust, the people that I love, that I miss because sometimes they're not with me. But that's something that when you think what's home, being at home is very important, especially for that self-care part. But like I said, doesn't need to be a specific place. Could be, state of mind. Could be many things. And going back to what you say about the lake and the steam or the smoke, that was something that for me, someone from Puerto Rico, when I saw that the first time, I was like, "Wow, what the heck is that? Why there's some steam or that smoke or whatever you call it?" Maybe you can correct me with that. But then I realized it's because the water is warmer than the climate, the weather. That's why you see that steam. So that was something that I remember a long time ago. There was a snowstorm in Duluth, and I went with my wife, like two crazy people with a camera just to take pictures and catch all that stuff. So yeah, that happened to Puerto Ricans and Venezuelans when they get together. Yeah.
I do that too all the time.
That's why you need a four-wheel drive vehicle to be in Minnesota. That's something that for my daughters, I always say, what, if I'm gonna leave her a car, I'll leave her a 4x4 because it helps, to move through the snow and that icy black ice and all that stuff.
Well, it's no joke. I mean, I'm just listening to you, Felix, and it's like actually like we can joke about it a lot, but there is kind of a thing like if you live in a place where the air gets cold enough that it brings it brings this huge it brings water off of Lake Superior. Go and be with that, and take pictures of it and notice it, and like if you live in a place that has a beautiful tree, spend some time around that tree, paying attention to what that tree does over the course of the seasons, and when the air gets really dry and when the air gets really wet and when there's rain and when there's no rain. It teaches us things. It helps us understand where we are and how we work too. And the same is true. Like I hadn't thought of this, but like when we get to be with our sister or the person that we love or somebody that we haven't seen for a while, like that's a form of home too, right? Like be with that and notice. And I guess that's why it's important what I started with, the 20 minutes a day of actually sort of paying attention to what's going on, like like we can learn so much from the way that we are and from the way that the people that we know and love are around us in our presence. And I really appreciate that about what you were saying too. And sometimes I'm going so hard that I'm not paying any attention, and I got tunnel vision, and I'm upset that things aren't going the way that I think that they should go. And these days, things are not going the way that they should go for humans. So, so, so that's my hope for the new year, is to practice into what you're talking about there too.
I like that, and it's bringing back, thinking about this awareness, Ed, that you're talking about, like see the tree, like go to the lake, be with that thing, whatever that is, and it's like that is a part of my slowing down too. It's like I can't notice, I can't be aware if I'm just like going, um, and then I'm also not really aware of like all of the harm that I'm sort of flinging on all the people around me when I'm in that like mode too. So it's like slow down, notice. I got to have this experience. I think it was on Tuesday of this week, where the practice or this exercise in this gathering that I was in was to find something nourishing to eat and to take 15 minutes and to just sit and be with that thing and notice that thing, and you know, using our senses, taste, sound, all of those things, right? And what sort of memories and things that that food brings up. And oh my gosh, it was like the weirdest, coolest experience ever. I was like, this is so bizarre. I was like, we don't have a lot of healthy, like, I don't eat a whole lot of healthy food. It's not great. But I found a banana and I was like, I don't know the last time I ate a banana, but we're going to do it. And yeah. And so just like giving it a shot, even though it feels weird too, you know, like, especially when it's like folks that I love and care about who are like, try this thing. Um, where it's like, I don't want to do that, or I'll feel silly, or, you know, like thinking about Felix, like you talking about how you hate crying and like you don't want other folks to see that and you don't like how that feels. Um, and that has been something too, where it's like, you know, being aware of those emotions in me and like letting the tears come when they do. Ed, I think you might know this better. I think it was Norma who said that Kleenex is for snot. But you know, like that whole thing, like why would we want to stop those things that are happening, and you know, instead of just like letting them flow naturally out. And um, yeah, so I'm thinking about a lot of things. This is, I appreciate this conversation, because another thing it's bringing up is like, okay, I'm sort of at a point where I'm okay crying, and I can like let that happen. It's usually like movies or music that will really make me cry. But then it's like I can't actually talk about why that is making me cry. Like I can't quite get in, you know, deep enough into those feelings to be like, why am I feeling this? Where is it coming from? And just to notice the feelings too. So I think that's something around the awareness and slowing down, is like, oh, I actually have feelings that are happening, which I prefer to not feel most of the time, because I'm, you know, that's a lot easier to stay in that place.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm one of those that when I'm watching a movie, it's coming to that part, I start thinking of something else because I know it's like that tear is coming. So let me change my mind and something else, just because I don't want other people see me crying when, like you said, it's something normal. There's an activity, I don't know, an icebreaker I also used in the past that is done with the senses. So I remember there was like when in this icebreaker, you ask the people in the room to, you know, and say 5 things or 6 things you can see, you know, around you. Then say 5 things that you can smell, 4 things that you can touch, or you know, things that you can hear around you. So you know, you're more aware of your space, and when you use that exercise, to make you, you know, see things that you normally don't see in those spaces. Like you give the example of the tree, you know, look at the tree, look at the branches, look at the leaves, you know, look at those little details that sometimes we don't pay attention because we're so busy. Like Ed said, you know, when you're in a mission, you're going that way. But make us more aware of those beautiful things around us that sometimes we forget, or sometimes we're not grateful just because, you know, we, we don't pay attention to them. So.
Well, and I'm just thinking too, I know one of the things that's happening, you know, this month, the month of January every year, is Trafficking Awareness Month. And I was just thinking about this thing between awareness and practice, and like actually making action steps. And so, though, you know, for those who don't know, you know, the month of January every year is this month that is, you know, to call awareness to human trafficking, to commercial sexual exploitation, and you know, all of the people who are harmed by that. And I think it's interesting. I've been to many, you know, events in the past years for Trafficking Awareness Month, and yeah, and I'm just sort of always wondering. It's a lot of the same folks in the room who show up and who care and who want to know and who want to be a part of, you know, finding solutions, creating communities where folks are not having to deal with this sort of violence and trauma and pain. And so, yeah, I guess I'm just kind of curious your thoughts. I mean, I'm always thinking, I'm usually the only man in the room or one of very few. Um, and so thinking about, all of the stuff we're talking about awareness, like within ourselves, right? Like ways that we can um, work on growth and healing and those things to become this better version of ourselves, this healthier, safer, more kind version of ourselves. And yet then, where does it translate to community then? And how do we get, like, where are the men and masculine folks in community? Why aren't they showing up? Yeah, just some of the questions I'm thinking about. I don't know if any of y'all have thoughts.
Well, one of the things that I think about in that, I think um, it's a really good question to sort of ask about how it is that the healing and the things that we that we learn in our own awareness, like how that translates into action that would impact other people. And um, you know, there's never one simple answer for these things, but I do think that what we're talking about matters a lot because um, I think specifically for community in general, or for, like, in my case, like communities of white men, for instance, there's some of the stuff that I was talking about around the way that we just move forward in our lives and can have blinders on and just plow forward. Um, that's something that creates. It's easy then not to pay attention to the things that are impacting and hurting other people, or even to participate in those things. But I think that for those of us who are people who are trying to organize ways for people to be a part of the solution in one way or another, a part of we're what is needed is the balance. Some of the balance that we talked about hoping for in the new year, right? Like, one thing that happens in Trafficking Awareness Month is we bring awareness to, like, tons and tons of people, Native sisters, all sorts of people who have been lost due to the issue of human trafficking, sex trafficking, commercial sexual exploitation, that kind of stuff. Um, we talk about the harm, about the ways that turning people into products causes damage in all sorts of different ways. Um, and then and we certainly want to engage people, like we want other men to understand that harm. And then I think that part of what's particularly needed in this time is how do we invite people also into the practice of something that's generative around addressing that harm then. And in some ways that's conversations like what we're having, the ways that we actually heal and learn and interrupt the ways that we're causing harm in our individual lives. But I think it's also stuff like when we're talking about our connection to home and to place, how do we start thinking and feeling the way that everybody deserves to actually have home and place that they feel safe and comfortable in? And that's a huge, I mean, that's an issue as big as sex trafficking, like the idea that you would actually believe that human beings all deserve to have a safe, good place to live and be. That's certainly part of the solution to addressing something like sex trafficking. Um, you know, other forms of care that we rely on, like I guess what I'm thinking about here is that the things that nourish and bring joy and connection to us in our individual lives are opportunities for us to dream and communicate and be in relationship with other people about what that should be for the whole, for everybody. And uh, I think that's, you know, we sometimes when we talk about this stuff, it sounds too big and too like pie in the sky to actually like make a dent in. But I think if these last couple of years have taught us anything, like from my perspective, I don't think I have any choice but to try to be able to be as healthy, as connected to a good life as I can possibly be, and to build a tighter and tighter network and fabric of people that I'm doing that with, and uh, and I think the opportunity is for us to do that for everyone. I think that's the problem with particularly how leaders and men who are leaders have thought about things in terms of us and them over and over and over again, and that we can sacrifice the well-being of others um, for the well-being of another group of people or ourselves or that kind of thing. And that's a hard habit to break, but I guess I'm thinking we need to think a little bit outside the box about how we invite one another into a different way of thinking about how we need to be in community and in leadership and stuff.
Thank you, Ed. First, I would like to send a lot of love and, a big shout out for all that, survivors, all that people that have, unfortunately passed away because of this, communities of, color, LGBTQ, the Native Americans. I think we can see you, we can hear you. Thank you for all of those that have been doing this work for years and years. Sometimes I can see how, with all the work that they have been doing, why this movement is still, growing, why we, and then it make me think what we can do, in order to do that. When you think about human trafficking, like Sean mentioned, maybe I was the only Latino male in these spaces, learning, understanding how, unfortunately, me being quiet have made me part of the problem. Now I'm trying to change that. You know what? I need to take action. I need to, help rise these voices of all these survivors and people doing the work. So, me understanding that our society also, exploit people. It was commercial sexual exploitation. We see it on the TV. We see how we can start seeing individuals as object. Women, men, kids, and how this is being are exploited just because of their body, and just because of this connection with the humans, seeing them like something that they can purchase, something that they can buy, and seeing, for example, my Latino community, especially the undocumented, that they're very vulnerable to fall in this path, when it's not their faults, obviously, but, the conditions make them be, fall in these traps. And this is a topic that, we always need to be very careful when we talk about it. I'm no expert about this, but I want to, create this space so also people can start having this conversation, start learning more, about organizations like Men and Peacemakers are doing the work, and many other nonprofits doing an amazing job. But it's going to take all of us to start breaking that, stop breaking those, all those things that are creating, and supporting and making possible that human trafficking happen. So it's something that we need to think about, something that we need to, learn more. And I'm grateful that you brought that topic. Hopefully, with this conversation, we can uh, open a window to people to say, you know what, let me go to Google, let me learn a little bit more about this. Let me see what organizations are already doing work, what kind of tools are available for men or for individuals to start supporting. And I know one of those tools is done by a project that Men and Peacemaker is using and facilitating, not just in Minnesota and Duluth, but also in the U.S., and something that us and Esperanza United are now working together so we can create this tool for the Latino community so they can learn also about this, how men can engage and maybe not be like me, being silent, and also, be aware and take action when they see it. So, yeah.
Dang, that's yeah, wow. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know what to say. I'm next to talk, but how do you follow some of this? Some of you guys have these pearls of wisdom that I deeply appreciate. And this, this conversation, I think, like what you're saying, Felix, I would say none of us would say that we're experts in trafficking. And some people might say, well, why are you talking about it then? And it makes me think about hard conversations. And, like when we're, each of us, whoever's in a conversation, when we're coming in fully with our hearts, with the kindness in our hearts and all of these things, good intentions, harm happens. People don't want to have these conversations because it's uncomfortable. It is. And yet I think there is so much value to having the conversation, even though, we're not coming up with a solution to trafficking right here. Like, and that is something that will take so many people, and so many people are working on that, right? And working on it together. Felix, like you said, with Esperanza United and then as peacemakers. And yeah, gosh, it feels like one of those huge things. Ed, you said it too. And yet I feel like in my heart, a belief that I have is that, through each of these conversations that we have, whether it's live on Facebook in front of all of you, or whether it's at our kitchen tables without a camera on us, having the conversation and just saying, I don't know about this. Do you know anything about trafficking? What's going on in my community? Like, who are the people who are working with survivors? And yeah, so those are just some of the things I was thinking about. And Felix, like you said, like you can Google these things. Like once you hear it, then it's like you have that choice then to either go forward and to try to learn more about that, or to forget about it until another time when it comes up. Or, I think the power in these sorts of conversations is that the ripple effect is like we can't even contemplate, or I can't, comprehend what is possible as each of these conversations are happening within different communities, and through generations too. I think about youth and young people, especially I think of LGBTQ plus youth who are oftentimes homeless or on the streets, and who are then falling victim to trafficking. And there's just there's so much to be done. And I think it starts with kind of the beginning of this conversation. Like, if I'm not taking care of myself, then I can't be out in the community doing good work or maybe I can be doing some good work out there, but it's not sustainable. I'm going to burn out quick. And I've been through cycles of that. So it's interesting thinking about this huge thing that, of course, we all want to see the end of that. And yet, what does it look like from day to day to day? So, and I know that we're coming up, towards the end of our conversation too. So I would love to hear, both of your sort of final thoughts, and whatever, if something hasn't come forward yet, feel free to share that now at this time.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. I think really enjoyed the conversation with you both, and it just makes me think about how some of these conversations, you're right, like it is uncomfortable in community to talk about the reality of trafficking and commercial sexual exploitation, the impact that it has on different communities, because it's a painful, and it's a very, very damaging, awful impact that's had. And if we didn't feel a an ickiness, if our if we didn't have a reaction to it, it would suggest that our, maybe our part of our compass is needing a little bit of tuning, like, and so there's that element to it. And then it makes me think about, like, also how it's related to conversations that are also difficult, but don't necessarily have to be, or don't have to be all that complicated. Like, it is important that we have a lot of conversations about what sex trafficking is and what commercial sexual exploitation is, and the impact that it has. I also think about things like it relates to the entirety of the conversation that we've been having. I think about being raised as a cisgendered, white guy in this culture, and with incredibly loving people around me, and still, like, all the ways that I learned about like sex and my masculinity in a way that that sometimes like felt like, I think first of all, one thing that it felt like is like I never quite knew if I was living up to or performing what I was supposed to be. And then in my case, I'm attracted to women, and like women when I was younger, even though I cared deeply for my friends and the women that I was in relationship with, there was also a way that they became a part of like me trying to accomplish something, or live up to something, uh, rather than the, the depths of goodness that human sexuality actually is, no matter who you're attracted to, how that's expressed, all that kind of stuff. And I guess I just share that because I think like the conversations that we have about sex trafficking, commercial sexual exploitation are like incredibly important. And then when we're raising kids or we're with our own friends, our own group of people, and there's opportunities to have conversations about things like relationships and sex and how to ask for help and crying and all the stuff that we're talking about, like what home is, people who don't have homes, like all that kind of stuff. And we can talk about it in ways that is that's that's different and allows for the goodness in it to emerge, and for some like loving um, some loving correction of the ways that that violence and harm gets normal in the way that we think about those things. That's that's a big part of prevention. That's a big part of how we address these issues, too. And so, I guess that was a little thing that was just sort of burning in me. But that'll be my closing thought. I really have enjoyed being in this conversation with you both.
Thank you, Ed, for that. And like Sean said in the beginning, I can follow that. Of course, I don't know. But me being a father, the more I learn about human trafficking and commercial sexual exploitation, having one daughter college and the one ready to, you know, this is the last year of high school, it's scary, super, super scary, and especially when they say, okay, I'm going out tonight, all these things start jumping in my head and start to get anxious. And at the same time, it's like how I can empower, my daughters, because I know they're capable of do everything she need to do to be safe and be sure the people around them, they're safe too. So that's one of those things, as a father, that I didn't found that in the book that I learned when I was learning how to be a father. That stuff wasn't in the book, So these things that we're learning now and trying to be on top of what's going on in our community, what's going on in the world, and remembering to empower women, the girls, men also are trafficked. That's something that people sometimes think, oh man, how a man could be trafficked? How men can be raped? It happened. It really happened. So thank you guys for opening, my eyes a lot of all things with this conversation, and hopefully do the same with the people listening, to hopefully reach out us, type questions in the chat in Facebook, or see how we can also support you guys. If you guys want to hear more about this, what are those topics you guys want to hear about? But thank you, Ed. Thank you, Sean. Super happy to be here and excited and looking forward to our next conversation. Thank you.
That's oof. Yeah, Felix, as a dad, that brings up a whole nother thing. Yeah, and the roles that we play within communities. So yeah, I just want to say thanks to both Felix and Ed for joining the conversation here. Again, missing our brothers who aren't able to be here. But we are very glad that we were able to have this conversation, and we hope that things that we have shared are things that you can relate to, and yeah, we just hope that these conversations can be a model for each of us. You know, I think it was said before, like within our families, in our jobs, there are so many ways and places where we can begin these conversations. And there doesn't have to be a solution at the end of a conversation. Um, so thank you again for joining us in what is our 35th live kitchen table conversation. We're very grateful for our funding partners, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Minnesota and the Novo Foundation, for all of their support and partnership. And as a reminder, our next conversation will be 2 weeks from today on Thursday, February 10th at noon Central Standard Time. We are excited. We have rescheduled with our friend and fellow community member, Chris Stark, who will be joining us 2 weeks from today. We'll be talking about all of her work and experience and within community, as well as one of her newest novels, which is called Carnival Lights. So we hope that you will be able to join us for that, grab a lunch, sit down and listen to the conversation, and share your thoughts with us in these coming conversations. I love that idea, Felix. Yeah, let us know if there are topics you want to hear from or about. We would love to be able to bring that into our conversations. So thanks again. Don't forget to like our Facebook page, find us on YouTube. You can find all of our conversations there, and take good care, everyone.